This video will show you how to install Windows 10 64-bit on VMware Workstation 14 Pro. First thing we need to do is create a new virtual machine. On the wizard, I'm going to choose the custom selection so I can experience as close to a bare metal installation as possible. Click Next. For backward compatibility and the fact that I'm going to move this to another machine, I'm going to drop the compatibility configuration to Workstation 12. If I were to keep Workstation 14, you see the compatible products are a bit fewer. I'm going to go back to 12. Click Next. I'm going to choose to install the operating system later. That way I can experience that more bare metal feel. Click Next. And choosing the operating system, Microsoft Windows, Windows 10 64-bit, we can go ahead and accept the default. This is to name the virtual machine. This name will suit me just fine. If you'd like to change it, go ahead and do so. Click Next. For the firmware, I'm going to go with a BIOS, more legacy, more acceptable on older hardware. UEFI is a newer technology. It's perfectly usable, but BIOS will suit our needs better. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. The number of processors we can configure here and the number of cores we can choose really beef up the processing power of our virtual machine. This is only going to be a test machine, so there's really no need for this. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Adjusting the amount of memory, if you have the memory to do so, you can adjust it to a good value. I'm going to use 4 gigabytes. Don't forget that when you configure a pool of memory, you're actually taking away from the available memory of the host machine. So be careful there. Go ahead and click Next. This is the networking type. There's several configurations we could use here. The first is bridged networking, which will make your virtual machine act as another node on the same network as your host machine. Your virtual machine will get an IP address from the same subnet. Or we could use network address translation. This will make the host act as though it were a NAT router in front of your virtual machine. So your virtual machine's actual IP address would be hidden behind the network address translation. We could use host-only networking, which will keep the network private. For our purposes, network address translation will work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. For the I/O controller type, I/O means input-output. The LSI Logic SAS controller is perfectly fine and recommended. I'm going to click Next. For the configuration of the disk, Windows 10 usually has drivers to accommodate most disks. However, SCSI is a risk. I'm going to back it off to a SATA drive. Windows 10 is more likely to have SATA drivers than SCSI. Going to click Next. I'm going to choose a disk configuration. I'm going to create a new virtual disk. I could use an existing or use a physical disk, but new virtual disk is appropriate here. Let's click Next. Here is where I can configure the size of the drive. 60 gigabytes is the default value for Windows 10. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. If you check this box here, allocate all disk space now, that would create a virtual disk file that is 60 gigabytes in size, even though the contents of that file may be empty. If you keep that unchecked, your disk will grow dynamically as you use space on the virtual machine. Click Next. This is the name of the hard disk file. This is perfectly fine for me. You can name it whatever you'd like. Click Next. And this is a summary of the configuration of the machine. Looks like everything is as I'd like it. I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. and that's going to open up the virtual machine interface. However, in order to boot from the DVD to install, I need to load that media into the DVD drive. My machine here does not have a physical DVD drive, so I'm going to choose to use an ISO image that I've downloaded previously. And there it is. Click open. Okay. Now we should be ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and power on the virtual machine. And since it doesn't have anything on the hard disk, it's going to automatically boot from the... Here is the first of the setup dialogues. This is where we can choose language, currency format, and input method. In the United States, and all these selections are appropriate. Select as you need to for your location. Click Next. Here you have an option to repair your computer. If you need to repair a hard drive that already has Windows installed on it, you could use this option. I do not have Windows installed at all, so I will just choose to install now. Setup is going to start and start looking for drivers. Now it's asking me for a serial key. I'm going to pause the video here so I can enter in a serial key and click Next. The serial key has been accepted. I'm going to, of course, read the EULA. I suggest you do that once in your lifetime. It'll be very long, reading, and tedious. I'm going to accept the license and move on. Click Next. Here I'm going to do a custom install. If I were upgrading, I could choose this option. I'm going to custom install, and this is the partitioning scheme. Notice that there is no allocated space here. Everything is completely unallocated. If I just click Next, Windows will do its thing. Windows starts to install. I'm going to pause the video here and there so you don't have to sit through the countdown to installation. Installing away. It's going to install some features. It's going to try and grab some Windows updates, and then it's going to reboot. And here comes the reboot. Starting services, finding drivers, and soon Cortana will start talking to us. Okay, rebooting again to finalize the driver settings. And here's the lovely Cortana.
Hi there, I'm Cortana, and I'm here to help. A little sign in here, a touch of Wi-Fi there, and we'll have your PC ready for all you plan to do. Use your voice or the keyboard along the way, and if you'd like me to stay quiet, just select the little microphone icon towards the bottom of your screen.
Okay, I'm going to quiet her down. She's quite annoying. I'm going to go ahead and choose my region, the United States. And the keyboard layout, US, is just fine for me. I don't need a second keyboard layout. I'll skip this. And finally, okay, here you can choose to sign in with a Microsoft account. To get around this, if you don't want to use a Microsoft account, use domain join instead here in the corner. And when you do so, just give yourself an appropriate name. I'm going to just put my name in there. Click Next. Here you can create a super secure password. I'm going to make sure that this thing just automatically boots directly into the desktop, and to do so I will not set a password. Not something that you would normally do. Here's where you can enable Cortana to be your personal assistant, kind of like Apple Siri. Not very useful. Kind of annoying to me. I'm going to click No. Here are your privacy settings. I really do suggest that you read through these things and choose what you would like to use, and what you don't want to use, make sure you disable. For briefity, I'm going to go ahead and accept whatever is default. And now we're going to get some updates and some configuration. And here we go. Hi, how are you? Okay. And here it comes. There is the desktop. You have now successfully installed Windows 10 on a virtual machine on VMware Workstation 14.